Hello, Eric. Welcome to the DoingCXRight show.
Awesome. How are you doing, Stacy?
I am doing fabulous, and I'm excited about this new season, the new year, and some wonderful insights from people like you. But in case anyone doesn't know you, Eric, who are you? What do you do for a living?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and thank you for having me on. I'm real excited. We've been, I've been watching your stuff, keeping up to date with you for quite some time, and it's exciting as well as a pleasure to be able to be on your show.
Thank you. I didn't
but
pay you to say that.
No, not at all. No. And my name's Eric Skeens. I'm the CEO and co-founder over at Three Tree Tech. Effectively, I head up an organization where we empower leaders, typically in the technology space, but that doesn't necessarily behoove us from helping others out or empowering others within an organization. But effectively, our goal is to help leaders achieve their business objectives and the results that they're trying to achieve as an organization.
I love that you talk about empowering because I think a lot of companies need the help. They don't know where they're stuck. And I appreciate all that you do, which is so much about empowering others personally and professionally.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It is our motto, as well as our mission as an organization, is to empower leaders, period. And so I always make sure that's stated as it's period. It's not empower leaders to make money. It's not empower leaders to do all these other things. Yes, we're a business, so we have to make money. But as we live out our mission, I always want to make sure my team, myself, lives and breathes out empower leaders, period.
Yeah. Now, speaking of what moves you and what fills your cup and empowering others, one thing about you, and it's my favorite question before we get started, and that is about you, your younger 20-year-old self. Eric, if you could go back in time and talk to the younger 20-year-old self, what would you say to him based on what you know now?
That's a fascinating question, and there's a lot I would tell the younger me. I was a very different person back then, but I think the main thing or the very succinct thing would be a human. There's at times I've been a jerk as an individual, an ass, so to speak, and yeah, I think it would sum up be a human. That'd be the first thing, but from a stepping out, I would say eat the frog first. I'm sure you're aware of that book or familiar with that book.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things I read early on, yet it never really internalized. And it's a very odd thing to state, but that eat the frog first, I think, would have lent me to not taking easy routes or trying to take easy routes in order to succeed and just kind of, starting there.
Yes, it is a great book and very well worth the time and investment in reading it and doing it. Now, let's talk about doing and my favorite saying of doing customer experience right. When I say that, Eric, what does that mean to you?
Honestly, it's the two of the things that we just talked about, which is empower individuals, empower others. When you're looking at how to do customer experience right and kind of approaching that aspect of things, empowering others, focus on the others before you focus on yourself. And the other piece is be a human, be kind. Remember, we're all doing business right now, and obviously a lot of us have to make money, all those things. But remember, the people you're interacting with are humans. We all live lives. Many of us have families. Many of us have friends. We interact, be a human, ask questions about those individuals, care, think about who that person is, and understand them. I mean, it makes the journey so much more enjoyable. And so That's effectively, and that's why we built our mission. It took us a while to get there. We've been in business for about 7.5 years, but it took us a while to figure out how should we be approaching business and what are we actually doing
Yeah.
for others. And it boiled down to we're empowering leaders because technology, processes, a lot of times will change over time. But if you just focus on that, the relationships, the individuals, everything else falls into place.
So you've made a living on technology enabling businesses. And yet we're talking about be kind and human and what's the mix there for you and how does technology actually help the customer through their journey? And journey meaning learn, buy, get, use, pay, customer service. Tell me your thoughts on that.
I mean, my business is tech. And so at the end of the day, when we look at technology, we have to look at them as tools. And depending on how long you've been in the industry, in the business world, I've been doing this for over 20 years. And through that 20 years, technology has continued to shift over and over and over again. And the resounding or the common denominator is the people, the relationships.
Mhm.
And so as you're looking at technology, you look at them as tools to help empower all of those relationships that you're building, whether it's with your customers, whether it's with your partners, whether it's with the folks that are internally within your company, or when you look on your personal side, if it's with a spouse, with children, with aging parents, whatever it might be, technology is a tool. And if we treat it any other way, then it becomes the focus. And you don't want the focus to be the technology. You want the focus to be the people.
Who's doing it right? What can we learn from those that are using the tool in the right way and that stands out to you?
I mean, us, of course. But no, realistically, as we're looking at the different technologies, it depends on which space we jump into. Our organization leverages or provides different types of technology, whether it's in the cybersecurity space, the customer experience space, even the what I like to refer to as the plumbing side of the house.
So, Eric, you work with a lot of tech companies and you also get so much, you get me around the passion of customer experience and the integration of the technology enabling and empowering the CX. Who comes to mind? What comes to mind in tech enabling CX? What's a problem you've seen and how it's a solution and an outcome from doing that right?
No, there's a lot of tech rolling around in my head, but if I were to kind of narrow it down, I'll use an example of one of our customers. They're a leasing property management organization. They have about 140 locations across the country. And one of the things that they're dealing with is it's effectively wrapped around how do I help customers quickly without having to hire way too many people within the customer success, customer experience management world, an agent or a customer agent. And so they leverage the technology in the conversational AI space. And that conversational AI technology specifically is called Elise AI. And one thing that you have to approach, or what they had to do, is figure out that balance between, is the conversational AI going to detract my customers from working with us,
Mm,
or is it going to enhance?
mhm.
Because there is a component where when you look at conversational AI, you have to identify, is it going to annoy the person on the other end? And there's different ways of looking at that. But for this specific company, a lot of the questions that they were getting that were all on via phone calls, not always via like an FAQ or even a chat bot. A lot of the phone calls were wrapped around asking people that want to live in their properties, asking, is there shower curtain rings or shower curtains in the apartment? And there are, yes. But it was a phone call. Is the furniture there? Because this was student housing specifically. And so these kids that are 18, 19 years old, probably just moving out from their parents' place and moving into a new location, they don't know what to expect. They don't know if there's going to be furniture. They don't know if there's going to be pots and pans, plates, all those things. So they're getting a lot of these calls, and it was taking up the agent's time to answer these very basic questions that were consistent. And so as you look at conversational AI, you have to understand, will this annoy somebody on the other end? Because it's very specific to them. And I think that's where there's this process or systems that have to be in place before you install technology. And I think that goes into more of a journey management perspective when we're looking at how to approach that. But at the end of the day, the customer, the folks that bought Elysia AI saw a huge increase in caring for the individuals when they needed it, because it was taking care of basic things. And the agents were able to focus on the more pressing things, both for their company that they work for, as well as the more complicated stuff for the individual. So I think we're seeing again, how does AI play into in the technology to be a tool to help people? And again, it's going back to empower. How do I empower others? And it goes back down to, how does that technology be leveraged as a tool that empowers them, not effectively pisses them off?
Any predictions for this year and next year on how security is going to impact CX?
Honestly, I think it's already happening. In 2024, we saw a huge influx of AI technology coming into the fold. I don't know if you remember back in the day, there's a huge push. Big data is the next thing. Big data this, big data that. Everything was big data. And there was a partial truth to that and a partial falseness to that. Big data was everything. We just didn't know what to do with it. Yeah. And now that we've been collecting all this data and having all this data for analytic purposes, with AI, it will speed up our ability to get insights, business insights, personal insights, everything out of this data. And so from a prediction perspective, I think 2025, you're going to see a huge marrying of data and AI, having more interaction together. So there's going to be an aspect, and all of that pumps into customer experience. So a lot of the technologies and the different silos within companies, you have the IT teams, you have the customer experience teams, sometimes you have IT teams that are dedicated to customer experience, which is a lot of times the office of the CTO, which is the technology facing outward. Like, there's these aspects that are starting to collapse into each other, and all of these or the portions, divisions, business units are having to work together. And you're going to see, because a lot of the data lives in the IT world, yet a lot of the business aspect lives on the CX or customer experience world. You're going to see these two teams start to work better together, because I think there has been a little bit of a silo aspect of IT teams annoyed at CX teams for saying we're implementing this, but not including them into the decision-making process, all these different aspects. But that data piece is huge, because now you're going to see customer experience, the business teams wanting to know, we have all this data, what do we do with it? And being able to slice and dice that into something that could be a revenue generator. We're watching that in some of our customers that are taking some things that I would have never thought of, and bringing that in and saying, oh, we can take this and actually sell some of this data that we leverage to our competitors. And that becomes really fascinating. You start to build a different revenue stream through the data, but you have to be able to build insights off of it. And AI is going to provide a lot of that speed to market or ability to go to market. And so that, but again, going back to your question on cybersecurity, that's where you've got to secure the data. And there's quite a few different technologies. One specifically, data security posture management, DSPM, which is it's a subspace within the security world. But that goes into classification of data, governance of data. There's a great organization we partner with. I'm biased, but I'm also looking at all the different space, a company called Sierra. They're a unicorn in the cybersecurity space. When it comes to unicorns, if you don't understand that, they've got large valuations. A lot of the investors believe in them. They've got $1 billion+ valuation. They're looked at as one of those players that you're going to see just rise to as high as they can go.
Do you know the outcome of implementing this technology, what the result was?
So there's multiple ways of measuring that aspect. But one of the main ways that they measured it was the increase, because their agents were able to focus on what their task was, which is getting more people into the properties. So they had an increase in revenue, a significant increase in revenue without having to add any additional people into the mix. And so from a results perspective, they saw an increase month over month over, annual. It was year over year, over $1 million of increase just in deploying it in a very small subset. So that was just in I believe it was the proof of concept or the proof of value that occurred. So of course, following that, they turned it completely on.
Love that. You talked about the journey, and there is a journey when you're installing tech and how it affects the end user, the customer. The customer can be internal or external to the company. Talk to me a little bit about journey management.
So from a journey management perspective, obviously there's a lot of tools that you can leverage. But at the end of the day, what those tools are doing is enabling you as a customer or as an organization to take processes. And this is regardless of whether it's customer experience, network related, voice related, security related. Our organization advises folks, technology is not your answer. And this is where journey management comes into place. You need to understand your business and your processes and the people you have in place to assist in those processes before you choose a technology. Because you can't fit a technology in unless you know what your processes are. And so the first thing we do as an organization is make sure that we understand those processes before we can make a recommendation of any technology. And so with journey management, there's tools that you can leverage, and there's a lot of them out there. I'm not going to name any specific ones right now. But when you look at customer experience, obviously you need to understand where are your customers coming from a profile management, profiling your customers. And do they live and breathe online? Are they a younger generation that live and breathe on their smartphones or anything of that sort? Are they on Snapchat all the time? I'm a little bit older, so I don't use a lot of these social media platforms, but there are quite a few that I do use. And so you got to understand where your customer base lives and breathes, and then map that from there to how do they get to you? And what does that experience look like? I always recommend folks try being a customer of yours for a second and just enter in and see what happens. We do that on a regular basis, make sure that all of our contact us forms and all that stuff works. But anywhere we're living within the social media side of the house or our website or via phone, we have to understand, how does somebody trying to reach us, how does that work? Sometimes that's a tough thing to do because it will point out some of your flaws.
Yeah.
But we're here to get better. So
That's a very important point. It points out your flaws. A lot of times people don't want to know. It's why they don't ask. They don't get feedback at those moments of truth in the journey. And it's mind boggling to me because how do you improve? How do you solve your customer needs without caring to know how you are doing, how you're measuring
yeah.
what they want?
Yeah, an interesting book, and I pulled these aside just so that I could share them, is one of the books that our good friend Michelle Martinez actually recommended,
Yeah.
which is Power of Moments.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with this book is amazing in regards to how it points out that you need to be remembered. There's aspects within your journey or within a customer's journey into your organization where there has to be little points. The whole thing doesn't have to be a complete like extravagant moment or everything has to be this, that, the other thing. There just has to be slivers of that. And obviously do well across the whole thing, but there has to be slivers of things that differentiate you from your competitors or just all the noise that's out there.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to get your attention. And when everybody's trying to get it, the only way is to stand out just a little bit more.
Absolutely. With the advent of AI and technology moving so fast, do you believe that it's going to be easier or harder to deliver those memorable experiences that you're describing?
Honestly, it's going to be easier. I know that a lot of folks have been pushing back within the AI and automation space. It's one of those things where there are aspects of it that suck. You have AI brain, which is where it does ridiculous things that don't make sense. But in and of itself, we have to remember what it is. Remember, AI is still a technology, and it's a component of a technology, and that's a tool. And so, as long as you understand your customer journey for your customers, you've got to figure out, okay, if I insert AI here, will it accelerate my customers and provide a better experience?
Mhm.
So you're always looking at that experience. And that can be an aspect where your agents, your customer experience agents, have the capability of providing those powers or those moments in regards to how they get into there. And the AI takes care of the things that are just, one, nobody really cares to deal with, but two, that are super important and important to get right every single time.
Yeah. So, a key to implementing the right technology that empowers the customer experience. There is so much technology. For people listening who don't have big budgets, what are some things tactically that they can go do to be able to really have a smashing year? And where do they begin? Because it's overwhelming,
Mhm.
right?
It is. It's very overwhelming. There's two components that I believe help individuals and that don't cost money. Is one, take a second and understand your business. I mean, it's so simple. We've been talking about it, and sometimes that's easier said than done. And that's where I usually recommend folks find individuals within your network that you trust. Those might be peers to you. Ask them, what are they doing? Who are they using? I
Mm.
always recommend using partners in that regard as well, or reaching out to partners. Our organization is always, we're providing a lot of consultation, always free, no cost type of scenarios. And so or finding individuals like yourself, as you've been in this industry, watched it from both sides, both the customer side as well as on the supplier side. And so when you have folks that understand what you're going through as an individual or what you're going through or what a vendor or a supplier will typically tell you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't trust suppliers. I'm just going to say that outright. People sometimes can't be trusted. And that's why you have to find folks within your network that you trust,
Mm-hmm.
and find those individuals. Who do they trust? Because if you can trust them and they trust you, you have a big network you can leverage.
Mm-hmm.
And so the easiest thing is, one, look at your business and get somebody else to look at your business.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's a lot of free resources for that, if you don't have the budget.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the budget, find people you trust and get paid engagements. Those paid engagements are very helpful. You have a specific result you're looking for. They take an extra care, because they're getting paid. There's a transactional aspect to it, but you get an outcome that you can actually work off of.
Mm. Yeah. Anything else that comes to your mind tactically that people you want them to leave with, to go do?
I would say learn as much as you can, especially right now. AI is at a point where you can leverage it in all facets and it will speed up your abilities. And it can be for very basic things.
Mm-hmm.
It can be for writing emails in specific tones, in shortening them. That's a basic AI assistant tool you can leverage. We've got an organization we work with called Walled AI that obfuscate a lot of that, because there's also a cybersecurity aspect that goes into a lot of this AI technology. And so you do have to be very careful because you don't know where your data is going sometimes. And so leveraging technologies and partners that are helping with that cybersecurity journey, can be very important as well, because you also need to keep a competitive edge. And if your data is going somewhere, it could be
Yeah.
going to your competitors. So there is a bit.
That's a huge point here, because we can't avoid the conversation of customer experience and the worry, the fear of where our data is going. That is absolutely the new conversation that people are afraid of. You hit a point around silos, the data silos, the human silos. Gosh, if that can become more connected in 2025 and beyond, that is a huge win for the organizations and for customers.
Yeah,
That's
very much so.
tremendous. Yeah, that's a pain point to me and something I work really hard to fix wherever I go. Last question for you, Eric. As a leader in a company and having worked with others before, leadership advice, what's your best leadership guidance that you've given or received that you want to impart that knowledge?
Honestly, I read a lot, and so one component, which is another book that I'm going to pull out,
Yeah.
is a book called Grit.
Yeah.
This book, by far, in understanding how to just continue pressing on. You have to have grit in business, as a leader. Anything you do, having grit and the perseverance to push through.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back down to that original thing you asked me about my 20-year-old self. Eat the frog first. Having grit to deal with the difficult things first will help you as a leader and not shine away from that.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you, Eric, for sharing your knowledge, sharing your predictions, sharing a bit about yourself. And in the show notes, I will have for listeners where to find you. And I know they will, because you're a wealth of knowledge. And so thank you for being here today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me again, Stacy, and looking forward to everything that you're doing across all aspects of technology and business. And it's been a pleasure watching your growth. especially coming out of a time where you weren't sure which direction you were going to go. And I think you're going in the right direction. And I know that we're going to see a lot more from you
Oh,
in 2025. So looking forward to it.
thank you.